stretched. We are ready for the big game. That's right. Rusty Halverson, Abby Miller, Joel Heitkamp, waiting for the commander, the master, Jack Michael.
It's our peak of the week. It's Wednesday, right?
Right.
It's a little hump day just for
right.
kicks, F-O-R-E. Masters is tomorrow. Do you have a favorite golfer? Do you have a favorite golfer, by the way? Do you? Tom Hoagie obviously now is.
Prior to all of this, it was Lefty, but I have a new one now. Mr. Hoagie's mine. But yes, Phil Mickelson was always mine.
I was, who was yours, Rusty?
Well, I'm kind of with Jack. I was a lefty guy. I follow Hoagie now, but how can you not watch Tiger? How can you not watch Tiger?
Having Tiger in there, it's
everybody
good.
But Tiger for me. And my wife's a Tiger fan, and we just would get after each other. We're like, I don't like him. He's spoiled. He's, he gets the camera all the time, and she goes, you know why? Because he wins.
In the world. I'm that. Who's the DJ? Not DJ, not like Rick Dees.
No, it's Dustin
DJ
Johnson.
Yeah, Dustin Johnson.
I did like Charles Howell III back in the day because he's about my build, and I was like, I can't hit it that far. How does he do that?
I like Craig Stadler.
Oh, the Walrus.
I like the Walrus.
I was kind of a Calvin Pete guy.
Remember when he got in trouble for putting a towel down and kneeling on it?
Yeah.
That was bull.
Abby, did you have a golfer?
I try to go based on looks.
Yeah.
And there was one years ago, and I can't remember his name.
Tom
Brunette. I feel like it's started with an M.
Tom Kite? No.
Tom Watson?
Text in who you think I'm thinking of.
Hey, does anybody remember the name of the guy in Mayville that sunk that putt?
Yes.
Remember? He was like, I can make that putt. And
it hit like, it just caught like wild.
He sunk it.
Yes.
He sunk it.
For a car, like $1 million or a free hoagie.
The guy
free sub.
The great golfer out of Great Britain was the guy putting.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, yeah. It was a yes.
And he couldn't sink it.
He says, I can make that. And he overheard him say, I can make that.
Yep. And he said, come on out here and try it.
And he buried it from like 20 or 30 feet.
Mayville, North Dakota, baby.
Great recall.
That's where he was from?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I can make that.
He gives him the putter and says, go for it.
Don't try it.
Dave Johnson, Mayville, he's my good friend.
Boom.
Thank you to that text message.
There we go.
Okay, here's the deal. We'll go quick. There's only 10 quick questions on here, and each of you get a chance to answer. So you can steal off your neighbor if you choose. And every correct answer today worth five.
500, 622.
We'll go 5 points. We'll just go 5 points. Now, so you each get a chance to answer, and if you double up, you double up.
Is your name your buzzer?
You each get a chance to answer.
Each.
So I'm just going to Joel.
I want Abby to go first.
Rusty.
Yep.
We can
Abby.
take turns.
Okay, here we go. Question 1. You play at home, the home game. Dwight D. Eisenhower is the only U.S. president to have been a club member at Augusta. Did you know that? The only U.S. president to be a member at Augusta. For 5 points, let's go around the room. Abby, what is Dwight Eisenhower's middle name?
I'm going to say it's just D.
Okay. Rusty?
I'll go with Donald.
Donald? Joel?
David.
Dwight David Eisenhower and Joel is correct.
Dang it.
Tiger Woods will be playing in the
You're
Masters some 14 months after a serious car accident. Rusty goes first. What is Tiger Woods' real first name?
Eldrick.
Joel?
Eldrick.
Abby?
I'm going to say Eldrick.
And Eldrick is correct.
I would have gotten that one, Rusty.
Glad I wasn't first on that
There
one.
are 19 states whose last name, Georgia obviously ends in the letter A. There are 19 states, I believe, whose last name end with the letter A. North Dakota being one, obviously, too.
The state's last name?
Yeah, kind of. That's the best way I could ask it. Which state that ends in A is known as the Treasure State? Joel starts.
Treasure
The Treasure State.
Oh, Rusty's already jumping up
Rusty
and down.
knows it already.
No.
Abby looks...
Nevada.
Okay. Abby?
I'm going to say California.
Okay. Rusty?
Montana.
And Rusty has got the points.
Dang it.
Why?
But what about the gold rush?
But why?
You thought, right?
Yeah, I thought about it.
I just thought of Vegas.
Right. Treasure. It's
We all
cha-ching,
put thought
baby.
into it.
Abby starts this one. Abby,
Super.
what is another name for a double eagle in golf? If you Score a double
Ooh.
eagle.
I'm gonna say albatross.
Rusty?
I'll agree with Abby on that one.
Albatross?
Yep.
Joel?
Condor.
It is not. It is albatross.
Thank you to Couch Potato Trivia.
Rusty, we did that the other day. Rusty starts. Speaking of condor, if Abby had a condor on a particular hole, what has she accomplished?
She flew the green.
Okay, Joel?
That's not a thing.
To fly the green? Trust me.
She got a hole.
That's a thing.
That's a thing.
That's fake.
I did that at Red Mike once out in Skakawea. I think I hit a pelican.
Let's see. A condor would perch and it would prey, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to say hole in one.
Hole in one. Abby, what if you had a condor? Like, what'd you get in that hole? I had a condor. What did you do?
It's bad, Abby. The opposite of an eagle. Eagle's great. Eagle's good. Condor, bad.
Albatross, really good, as you knew.
Yeah. Sand pit.
You were all incorrect. A condor is 4 under par. Literally would be a hole. Well,
Hole in one.
technically
par
speaking,
five?
it would be a hole in
Do
one
I
on a
get
par
points
5.
for that?
No, that's not what you
Oh.
said. That's not what he said.
On a par 5.
You know.
Specifically a certain hole. No.
Yeah. Were you thinking that when you said
I don't know.
No, he wasn't.
I would say half points for that.
Some par 5s.
you get 2.5.
It's only been done a couple times. Some par 5s dogleg, and some people take the short route, and over a handful of times, someone has had a hole in
I
one on
can
a par
always
5.
drive it over those trees, and then I look for it.
We are at Rusty, an old Scottish word, niblick, or niblik. I don't even know if that's Scottish. How would I say that in Scottish, Abby?
Niblick.
Okay.
Niblick.
Refers to which iron in golf?
I will say a 2-iron.
Okay. Joel, a niblick.
Chipper.
A chipper? Abby, a niblick.
Good old is driver an iron.
It's not.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't thinking that anyway.
It's driver.
Let's say a 5.
The correct answer is a niblick is a 9.
9.
Oh.
I just want to say I was closest.
We only got a couple left here. Right now, Joel with 10, Rusty with 15, Abby with 10. Joel's up.
How can I have 10 if I got
Nice.
half of? Never mind.
Are we giving you half?
No.
Okay. Joel, an Arnold Palmer drink is made up of what 2 items?
Oh. You know too, Rusty. I
Yeah,
can see the
I'm
look
so
on his
happy
face.
Joel's going first.
It's cranberry juice and lemonade.
Okay. Abby?
I'm gonna say iced tea and lemonade.
Okay, Rusty?
I'll agree with Abby.
Rusty and
The
Abby.
minute she said it,
Tea and lemonade.
Cranberry juice and lemonade, huh?
I almost said vodka. I'll guarantee you there's been some in one of
You're
those.
Arnold Palmer. Just a few remaining. In 1986, Abby, you go. Jack Nicklaus won the Masters. He was 46 years old. At what age was Jack Nicholson when he starred in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Look at the look. That's the look he had in that movie.
Seems like an older movie, but he's kind of an older fella.
He's 84 now.
Okay, let's say 33.
Okay, Rusty?
I'm going to go with 35.
Ooh,
Okay.
we're in the same
Are we
ballpark.
doing closer wins the points?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
go 31.
Oh my gosh, I started a trend.
He was 38 years
Oh.
old. Rusty gets the points. Rusty with 25
Wow.
points.
I think
now.
he won the Oscar for that, didn't he?
I think he did.
I think he
He's
did.
certainly
Was he
nominated.
an actor before a golfer?
Jack Nicholson?
Never mind.
that's
Never mind. Ignore me.
Two different guys. That's okay.
Well, we
You
love
know,
her.
if I said that, she'd turn that into
Yeah.
a promo.
Well,
You
we
know?
love her.
Luckily, you don't know how to work the computer.
Rusty starts. Tom Hoagie will be playing in his first Masters. These 2 Toms rank number 1 and number 2 in total money grossed at the box office.
Oh,
We have to guess 2 of them.
Yep, you need both.
Who's first?
Rusty
Rusty.
starts.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Do I
get
have to come
third.
up with both of them?
Yep.
Okay, Tom Cruise and Tom Skerritt.
Okay, Joel,
Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks.
Abby,
I named 2 Toms for sure. Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks. And it's actually in the order of Tom Hanks and
Sorry,
Tom
Mr.
Cruise.
Scarrett. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Who's
you get
Tom Scarrett?
Joel
he's
with
an actor.
15, Abby with 20, Rusty with 25. Last question's worth 25 points. We just made it 25 points.
That's what he does. This
Sorry,
is how
Rusty.
Sarah Heinrich always wins.
Sorry, Rusty. Otherwise, you would have won this already,
No,
Rusty.
that's fine. That's fine.
And we start with Joel.
Yes.
If you combine the color of the jacket the Masters winner gets and the color that Prince wore often, what new color would you get? I'll take anything in the
So
neighborhood.
green and purple, you would get brown.
Okay, Abby?
I'm saying brown too.
Okay, Rusty?
Yeah, I think it's brown.
I would have accepted greenish brown or muddy gray. You each get 25 points, and Rusty has won just 4 kicks.
Yeah, he didn't like David Eisenhower, though, did he? We're going to take a break. When we come back, oh, we're heading into the season, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Mike Larson with Outlet Rec. How you been, Mike?
Pretty good. How about you, Joel?
Well, I'm ready for a parade of fun. What the heck is this all about?
Well, we haven't. You're in luck. Yeah, we have inventory. I mean, we've got lots of inventory, and that's great. We have pontoons, we have boats, Crestliner. We took on Crestliner fishing boats this year. We've got a lot of Crestliner boats. We've got used boats and campers and motorhomes, and I mean, you name it. We've got a lot of stuff. So this is a great time to take a look, and we're going to make it a little extra fun for you. We always have something that we do different, but we're going to give away $100 gallons of free gas with everything that you buy. And also, you put $1,000 down, we'll match it with another $1,000 down for financing.
Well, and I can vouch for this as somebody who's bought a lot of things from Outlet Rec. They back what they sell. I love that. But, you said inventory, Mike. That hasn't been the norm. So if you've got some, people are going to want some.
Exactly. I mean, we ordered really big and we ordered really early so that we would have it at this time of year. So if you're used to going into different stores, no matter what it is, and they're kind of picked over and the shelves are bare and maybe dealerships don't have a lot of stuff, we have tons of inventory and a lot of stuff to look at in all categories, from campers to boats to pontoons, you name it, we've got it.
So down payment wise, say I got $1,000 down payment, how's this gonna work out?
Yeah, we take care of the financing for you. The rates are still really low. They're talking about rates going up, but right now rates are really low. You put $1,000 down, we'll match it with another $1,000. So in most cases, that's all the down payment that you'll need, depending on your credit situation. So it makes it really simple and easy. We just take care of everything. You come pick it up whenever you want to. If you want to wait until May to pick it up, no problem. We'll store it for you until you need it. Just try to make everything really, really easy for you.
Okay, one last one, I promise, Mike. But, a lot of people, when I talk to them now, they're worried about gas. They're worried about whether or not they can afford gas to put into one of these things. Are you going to help out there a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 100 gallons of gas. Now, we're not going to fill your trunk up with gas. We're going to let you get it, and we're going to reimburse you for it. But, 100 gallons of free gas, that'll get you going for the summer. At least cover a few trips and a few different outings for you, whether it's a boat or a camper or whatever. We'll cover some gas.
So here's what you do, Mike. I'm ready for this. My brother and I share on a pontoon, right? And I'll just tell him I'll get the first 100 gallons, and he can get the second 100. How you think that'll work?
Oh, I think that's perfect.
Exactly. So tell people where to go, when to go, and what to do.
Well, we've got a marine store in Fargo. We've got a marine and RV store in Detroit Lakes, and then we're in Cross Lake and also Clearwater, and of course, always online at outletrecreation.com. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and both Thursday, Friday from 5 to 7, we have free food. So we're doing food from 5 to 7 each day, open till 7 o'clock at night, and then normal Saturday hours 10 to 4.
All right. Check them out, Outlet Rec. I can vouch for them. I've done a lot of business with Outlet Rec, and as I said when we started this, they back what they sell. All right. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a chance to talk to some true heroes in Ukraine, people that are making a difference, people that are putting and sticking their necks out on the line for people. It's a really neat story. Also, there's a man named Finn Dooley who wants to be the next Secretary of Agriculture in the state of North Dakota. Why? And what's his thoughts going into this process? Obviously, everybody knows it's an uphill climb for him. Is this a platform? Is this a way to get a message out there and have a conversation? We'll talk to Finn about that. So everybody stick around. More's coming your way here on News and Views. just so you know, it could make up its mind whether it should snow or rain today on my drive up. So I'm sure the roads are getting better as the temperatures increase a little bit, but I will say that this winter. And right when I think it's bad, then I think of people like my first guest today. I think of people who know what bad is and where bad is, people that dedicate their life to helping other people. And quite frankly, if Dr. David Calloway doesn't make it to heaven, I don't have a shot. That's right. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and professor of emergency medicine at Carolinas Medical Center. But here's the important thing for me and why we asked him to come on. He joined Team Rubicon in 2011 as the chief medical officer. I've got all these notes in front of me of what Team Rubicon is, but when you're the head of it, I think it's best that you explain to people what Team Rubicon is. Dr. Calloway, thank you, sir, for coming on.
Hey, Joel, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Could you give people a little...
Good to be back in the Midwest.
Yeah, you belong here, even though you're going...
I know.
All right. Could you tell people what Team Rubicon is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the chief medical officer for Team Rubicon. So I run our medical operations and strategy, and then we obviously have a CEO named Bartella Cruz. So Team Rubicon is a veteran-run disaster response organization and international humanitarian aid organization. So we're a nonprofit organization started in 2010 after the Haiti earthquake, when a couple of combat experienced Marines came back from Iraq and Afghanistan and saw the Haiti earthquake and thought they could put their skills to use. And from this ragtag band of 8 veteran do-gooders, we've grown into about 150,000 volunteers nationally in the U.S. Over the last 12 years. And we do a fair amount of work domestically when you think about like flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes, in terms of route clearance, debris management, helping people out with their homes that are damaged. And then internationally, we do mostly medical relief work. And so in the last few years, we've been verified by the World Health Organization as one of their go-to teams. And we've done COVID response work for the last couple of years. We were down in Haiti during the earthquake. And then most recently, we're in Eastern Europe in response to the Ukraine crisis.
And to me, that's just absolutely amazing. The background that people have with the military, by the understanding you get there, and then to be willing to go in what, if you're in Western Ukraine, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're in harm's way. And I know there's a lot of people displaced internally in Ukraine. Of course, we see the stories of individuals that have gone into Poland and other countries looking for, just a place to hide. But give people an example of what your team is doing in Western Ukraine.
Yeah, so we have basically we've got teams we have what we call our operations centers in Eastern Poland, and we have a medical team in Hungary, and then we have a larger medical and training team in Western and now Central Ukraine. And so what we focus on, Joel, whenever there's a crisis like this, and sadly I've been in too many of them, you have the trauma of the actual war. So the people getting shot and blown up, and that's what we're seeing on the news in the East, and it's very acutely traumatic. It's very dramatic. And then you have what is often lost in the conflict, which is what you just hinted at, the massive displacement of people. And so the numbers are somewhere on the order of about 7 million internally displaced people within Ukraine, and about another 4 million or so, I haven't looked at the numbers today, about another 4 million who have crossed over into Poland, Hungary, Romania, Moldova. And so what our teams have done is we're focused on the internally displaced people and the refugees. And so we are providing urgent care, primary care, checkups, emergency care as needed, with a series of mobile teams that go to these what have become basically ad hoc camps. So think about a church gymnasium, tents outside a train station, these areas where 200, 300, 400 people have basically moved and set up temporary homes, and we provide their clinical care, some degree of mental health support. And then a lot of it is frankly, showing these individuals that their story is being noticed in the world. People care, people are there, and they're offering assistance. The second thing we're doing is now moving to a training and capacity building mission with our local partners in Ukraine. So helping them to learn some of the lessons we've learned over the years in terms of how do you care for patients who have trauma. So the gunshots, the blast victims, how do you do that most effectively and with what resources? So we're working with local partners to do that. That falls back to our partnerships with a lot of academic institutions. So Team Rubicon is partnered with my health system, which is Atrium Health, the University of Colorado, and then we have informal relationships with some other big health systems. And so we're able to bring these people who are clinicians who actually train the future doctors for a living in the U.S., and we're able to put them into these situations where they're able to also help train some of the Ukrainians on medical care.
So, Dr. Calloway, what you just described is something you're trained to do, and it's your calling. I get that, but to do that, you've got to mix in the politics of a country, giving you information, being in harm's way. Maybe politics isn't the right word, but the danger is probably the best way of putting it. How do you handle all that? Because it's one thing to take a physician, it's another thing to take a diplomat. I mean, how do you work all those things through?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Joel, and so I think there are. It's obviously a spectrum. So my background is actually in health security. So I have a master's degree in national security, and that's relevant because there is the physical security part of how do you move a team safely into a conflict zone in an area where the culture is maybe a little bit different and languages are different. And we've got a great group of experts who understand how to do that. And so first is, doing an assessment, understanding the landscape. The second is making sure you have trusted local partners and that you have individuals who speak the language. The third is that you act in a respectful way to the community where you're responding and serving. And then once you do that, you build trust. And that is the main way that you build security for your teams. There are a lot of technical things that get done as well. The other piece, though, which you hinted at, and you weren't sure whether to call politics, is politics are real and they matter because this is a sovereign nation. And perhaps more importantly for us is there are governing international rules to how you provide humanitarian aid, and it's international humanitarian law. Some of it's linked to the Geneva Convention, and part of these are these principles of how you respond. So it's independence, neutrality, impartiality, and humanity. So when we go to serve, we are serving the victims of this conflict. And frankly, that means whether they're Russian or Ukrainian or Polish, men, women, we are there to serve the people in need, and we can't take a side in the conflict. And that's hard, right? That's hard when all of the news and all of the perception seems to point towards, a good versus evil war. And we all have our personal opinions, but as an organization, as a humanitarian organization, we have to maintain neutrality. Our job is to care for the people in front of us who need life-saving medical care, who need mental health care, and that's what we're there to do. And so we do have to be diplomats.
Dr. Calloway, I know Abby said, luckily for me, that you could give us a little more time. Hang with me because I'm really curious about the sheer mechanics of how you do it once you get on the ground. So let's head to the weather cave, though, and find my tall. Dr. David Calloway knows where the upper Midwest is. That's right. He can find his way to Rochester, ladies and gentlemen. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and professor of emergency medicine at Carolinas Medical Center. He joined Team Rubicon in 2011, and he is the chief medical officer. Dr. Calloway, the mechanics. You put a mobile unit on the ground in Ukraine. You don't want people to know it's there. You want it to get to in Western Ukraine. You want it to get to the people in need. And also you need gear in it. How do you physically make that work, Dr. Calloway?
Yeah, Joel, I mean, growing up in the Midwest and being a scout, right? Like this, it's about being prepared, right? And I think about my mom would never let me go deer hunting in November without having accountability and a plan for communication, a plan for transportation, a check-in time. And it may seem crazy, but that's the core of how you do it. And so first is you have the right processes in place and you prepare the team, you select the right team, you make sure they're vetted and they trust each other. And then it's accountability. So when you go into an area like this, you need to know where your people are. You need to have, for us, we have redundancy in everything we do, and it goes back to the whole 2 is 1, 1 is none. So, we have 2 or 3 or 4 different ways of communicating. We have backups on our vehicles. We have, contingency plans for if something goes bad, if someone gets hurt, if someone gets lost. And then we train that, and you have to train it so it becomes second nature to people. And we can always be better at that. And the key is always having that growth mindset where you're always thinking about what is the change in environment and how do you make it better. Now, for us, one of the challenges, it was interesting what you just said is, we don't want people to know where we are. The challenge is we do want people to know where we are. We want the right people to know where we are. We want patients and communities who are in need to know that they can access us. But then in a situation like this, understanding that, we are a little bit more of a target than if we were to respond to, a flood in New Orleans. But our teams are pretty used to operating in environments that are unstable. Again, whether it's Haiti earthquake or a cyclone in Mozambique, and you have to have some common sense. And we try to make sure that our teammates do. Eyes up, look around, be polite. Don't do things like travel alone in the dark. And if you have people who are constantly reinforcing that, then your teams tend to do pretty well.
How about the challenge of the language, Dr. Calloway?
Yeah. So again, fortunately, our teams have worked all over the world, and so we would never just go into a country where we don't speak the language or have language assets. So in this particular case, we were exceptionally fortunate. There's a strong Ukrainian diaspora in the U.S., and so our initial team that I was with had a Ukrainian American pediatrician, so spoke fluent Ukrainian. We had a Ukrainian who was in the U.S. on a Fulbright scholarship, who was able to take a leave of absence and come with our team. And so we always make sure that we have both the language skill and then a plan for expanding that. And so what we did when we got in country, we had natural first language speaking Ukrainians. We then worked to build relationships with local university and local health systems in order to also recruit and partner with bilingual healthcare providers in Ukraine who could then work with our teams. Some of them were medical students. Some of them had just graduated college. Some worked actually at the hospitals. And we always make sure that we have that capability, because if we can't communicate with our partners, we can't communicate with patients, it makes it really hard to provide care.
Dr. Calloway, what about, it's clear to see why some of the people that know you, and I'm not just trying to blow smoke at you, just respect you and the people that you surround yourself with, your work, but what about people that would want to help? Or how do you get chosen? Is it because of military background? What makes a person eligible to join Team Rubicon?
Yeah, so we're about 70% veteran and 30% of people who have never served in the military is sort of our general composition. And we're a volunteer organization, just like the Red Cross or United Way. So you can sign up, and then you get on our roster. But to be on the international team, because it's a more specialized and frankly has a higher risk profile, once you sign up, you have to go through about 12 or 15 hours of online training about humanitarian aid, humanitarian care, the principles of humanitarian response. Then we do personal interviews, and we do secondary interviews where we vet applicants ideally. And then we've reinstituted, which we had a pause on this, but we have what we call international team leader training course. And so if you're going to be one of our team leaders or if you're going to be one of our senior medical providers, we do this week-long course down in Texas where you go through the rigor of understanding the processes and procedures, but then you spend about 4 days in the field going through scenarios, leadership scenarios, ethical dilemma scenarios. And we have a cadre of experienced people who both do evaluations, but also do mentorship and coaching, so that when you're done with that, we have people who understand the core values of Team Rubicon, understand the international humanitarian principles, but then also can work together. And we know we'll be good teammates, because you can have really smart people, really good doctors, and you put them in an environment and they just don't mesh with the team, and that harms the mission, decreases their ability to care for people, and then it puts them at risk.
I know we just have a little bit of time left, but getting the people to trust you, in 30 seconds or less, there's people you're trying to help out there, and they've got to trust you. How hard is that?
Yeah, well, it depends. Are you talking about patients, or are you talking about our team? Because I think they're different.
I'm talking about if I'm a victim in Western Ukraine and somebody comes up to me right now, how do I trust them?
Yeah, well, one is, I think you have to be humble, and so we try to always partner with local providers so that there is trust. They don't just see some outsiders coming in to provide care. Mm-hmm. We always try to focus on listening, focus on being humble, focus on trying to understand what the issue is, rather than just offering a U.S. based solution to what we think is a problem.
Well, clearly they got the right guy to do that. Dr. Calloway, thank you, sir. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, David Calloway. What a person. Come back with your thoughts. Welcome back to the News and Views Radio Network. Dr. David Calloway, what a guy. I mean, what a guy. Huge background. You know, we're talking about an individual that, chief resident, the Harvard-affiliated emergency medical residency in Boston. I mean, you can keep going down a list of his accomplishments and what he's done, and all I'm going to tell you is it's intimidating. It really is. But making a difference. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's making a difference. So, here's the other part to all of this. There's a lot of folks that are looking for ways to help. You know, for many of us, that ends up being the only way we can help is money, right? I mean, the only way we usually find that we can help is to give a buck or two to a great cause, and hopefully that keeps things like Team Rubicon and others out there doing what they do. In the notes that I got, they were perfectly clear. They don't want to talk about how many people there are out there working. They don't want to talk about where they are. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. Right now they're in Western Ukraine, out there providing the type of care and an understanding, ladies and gentlemen, that it isn't just what they've gone through, and they're helping people with the injuries of war in terms of physical harm to their bodies. There's mental harm to them as well, and so there's a recognition of that, which makes me respect them even more. And you sit back and you say, is there any good out there at times? Well, there's good out there, and this is a perfect example of that. Now, a couple of things that have happened since the last time we talked. Number one, Tom Cotton of Arkansas, United States Senator. And, this kind of plays into what I just did. And I think I make the same mistake that many do. When I was talking about Dr. Calloway, I was referencing it in relation to some of his accomplishments in life, right? Dr. Calloway, the chief medical officer for Team Rubicon, talking about in 2018 how he was at the Center for Public Leadership at Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Okay, that's an honor. That's a big honor. Those are names. Those are big names that come on. Well, then you look at Harvard and you look at it and you say, okay, as much respect as I had for it right there, then I don't have very much respect in the example I'm about to give you, because the individuals, and I have some in my family that really value and grade people solely on what that degree is, what you've accomplished academically. And I'm one of those individuals that, and maybe it's because of my bias of how I've lived my life, but I'm one of those individuals that solely judge people on what they do and what they've accomplished with whatever skills they got, whether it be through higher education, whether it be through an apprenticeship, whether it be through an internship, whether it be, I don't care what path you chose to do whatever you're doing out there. What are you doing with it? Are you getting something done? In Dr. Calloway's case, he's getting something done. In Senator Tom Cotton's case, sure, he went to an Ivy League school. Oh my God, I went to Harvard. Look at me. Well, what's he doing with it? You can say, well, he got elected to the United States Senate. He's a Republican in Arkansas. That's not really hard to get elected to the United States Senate if you climb to the top of all the other Republicans in Arkansas. And by that, I mean be as bombastic as you can. If you're going to run for president of the United States, which Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton and Governor DeSantis, if you're going to run for president of the United States and you're one of these individuals, Kristi Noem, for example, who I think is running for vice president of the United States. But if you're going to do that, the way you do it in the party that they're in right now is to not be someone that wants to have a serious conversation about governing. It's to be as bombastic and outlandish as what you possibly can. And I want to give you an example of that. I want you to listen to what Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas said on the floor yesterday about Ketanji Brown Jackson and a woman who's about to be on the United States Supreme Court. Listen to this.
And who were these supposed innocent victims of American war crimes who, according to Judge Jackson, had nothing at all to do with terrorism? No siree, nothing at all. Well, one of her clients designed the prototype shoe bomb that was used in an unsuccessful attempt to blow up a passenger airplane. Another planned and executed a rocket attack on U.S. forces in Afghanistan. And a third was arrested in a raid on an al-Qaeda explosives training camp. Yet in every case, she claimed that none of them had anything to do with terrorism. Not a thing. Totally innocent, just goat herders who were picked up by marauding American troops. You know, the last Judge Jackson left the Supreme Court to go to Nuremberg and prosecute the case against the Nazis. This Judge Jackson might have gone there to defend them. Judge Jackson may feign ignorance, not because she doesn't know these answers, but because liberal judicial philosophy is all too often based on denying reality. As a judge, Judge Jackson has denied that reality again and again. Judge Jackson will coddle criminals and terrorists, and she will twist or ignore the law to reach the result that she wants. That's not what we need in a Supreme Court justice, and that's why I will be voting against her nomination.
So it just shows you how deep his knowledge is of how the legal system works, right? I mean, number one, if you're part of a group that does public defense, sometimes you're going to represent clients that you don't like, you don't agree with, but that are entitled to a defense. And it's your job to put on the best defense you can. He doesn't know that. He doesn't get that. Apparently, they didn't teach that at Harvard. Apparently, having that Harvard degree, it only goes so far in terms of your overall intellect before you head out into the real world. So that's good. The other thing that came out, and it didn't take long for it to come out, was the individuals that have been involved in the Holocaust came out and made a strong statement about Senator Cotton, saying quit using the Holocaust as an example for political gain. Quit doing it. And that alone is something he should be ashamed of. To sit there and say Judge Brown Jackson is someone that would have represented the Nazis, that might win you points in a Republican debate. I have no doubt that by the end of the day, he raised money because of it. In fact, if you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, there are few members of Congress that get more donations than her, because there are people out there that like this. They want that. They want it. And so what is easier than to stand on the Senate floor and say something like this and just collect the money? Have it come in. Oh, my God. Way to go, Tom. I can't stand this woman. She just got there because she's a woman and because she's black. She's out there. Goat herders. Yes. He said goat herders, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they said they were, and they're inventing bombs and they're killing people. Well, you know what? She's an attorney, and it was her job to represent people, and apparently she did it very well, because many Republicans appointed her or voted for her to the federal bench, approved her being on the federal bench. Until now, until those big cameras were going to be on right now. And then people like Tom Cotton start talking about pedophiles. They start talking about sexual deviants, when in fact they don't look at the rule of law and what's happened. They don't take a step back and say, okay, is this something that happens? Is this something that we better be careful of, because people from our side of the aisle actually sentence people to the levels that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson sentenced? Ralph Erickson. I know Ralph Erickson. Ralph Erickson is a Republican. He was appointed to the federal bench. He was advanced to the 8th Circuit, approved by people of both sides of the aisle. Judge Ralph Erickson is a good judge. He's a good person and a decent man. And his name was brought into this because he was an example of sentencing like Judge Brown Jackson had, even more cases. Keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind as we have this debate. Now, I want to go back to what I was getting at when it comes to this level or this path of how you get to a point where you're the one that is saying those things from the floor of the Senate. The disgusting things that he just said. Labeling her as a supporter of Nazis, as a defender of Nazism. How do you get to be that person? How do you, if Harvard is such a big deal, how do you get into it? I mean, what admission standards do they have? Why should I respect that? If that's all the farther his education went, why should I respect it? And it goes to a conversation that we had, earlier or the end of last month, which was how big of an insider deal is the people that work in Washington. You want to talk about an insider trading? I mean, when you've got the wife of a Supreme Court justice at a rally encouraging insurrection, and you've got her husband not recusing himself, but being the lone dissenting vote for the official documents to be given to a committee investigating that insurrection. That's actual fact. That isn't conjecture on whether or not a woman would be defending Nazis at Nuremberg. That's ridiculous. That's unforgivable, quite frankly. But when you have a situation in your own backyard where that happened and you're not willing to point out that that's a conflict of interest and that physically happened, then you are at fault. And Senator Cotton and others like him are at fault. And maybe, just maybe, that's why this whole insider you got the job for life thing has backed up on John Hoeven to where only 54% of his party say we like you. 46% of his party says get out of here. Maybe it's time for some new faces. Maybe. I don't know. It's happening locally here. I mean, it is. Doug Burgum. Those are the two names you've got to keep in mind. Doug and Burgum. Granted, they're the same man. But the governor of the great state of North Dakota can't stand Kim Koppelman. He doesn't like him. Kim Koppelman is the Speaker of the House in the North Dakota House of Representatives. And Kim Koppelman's legislative history is weak, to say the least. And so I don't blame Doug Burgum for looking at Kim Koppelman and saying the state of North Dakota will be better without him holding public office. I have absolutely no doubt that Doug Burgum was the one that talked Mr. Jonas into running against Kim Koppelman. And, of course, last night he beat Kim Koppelman. And Kim Koppelman apparently, although I don't know if I believe it, has said that he will no longer seek that office by going to the primary. This is the same Kim Koppelman that we're talking about an amendment into a bill that doesn't acknowledge marital rape, that takes away that. Okay, this is the same Kim Koppelman that voted to keep Luke Simons in the North Dakota House, even though he was a sexual predator. So, yeah, there's plenty of reasons for Kim Koppelman to go away, and luckily he is going away. And good job, Doug Burgum, for doing it. But who's going to clean that house? Who's going to make sure that house continues to be cleaned? I'll give you some more examples of where they can start. But first, I get to the weather cave and find Too Tall Time.
SAG Studio, Enterprise Sales of LA City, your grain handling and storage experts.
Thank you, Sarah. There's some numbers I want you to remember. Number one, 1994. Okay, remember that number, ladies and gentlemen, 1994. And the reason I want you to remember it is because that's the year that Kim Koppelman went into the legislature. That's when I went in. We went in the same class. We were the election of 94. We went into the legislature in December, and we went to our first session in 95. So it's been that long that Kim Koppelman has been in the legislature. Now, another number I want you to remember, 100, pick 105, whatever. But there was about 100 people at that district convention last night that Kim Koppelman got his butt handed to him in. Okay? How in the world, if you're getting challenged by an individual, that means he would have needed 51 of those people. 51 of those people that were there last night, he would have needed to vote for him. How in the world, after being in office since 1994, can you not get 51 people to a meeting to vote for you, to be the nominee? 51 people. Heck, that's a weekend at the lake for me. 51 people. I ran against somebody that was a Democrat for an office once. We had 480 people at that district convention between the two of us. 51 people Kim Koppelman couldn't get there to vote for him. He deserved to lose for a lot of reasons. Back to the news and views, our radio network. Joel Heitkamp here, your host. Abby Miller, the producer. We've got a gentleman in the house that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting before, but I have now, Finn Dooley. He is the grandson of Dakota pioneers, and he has placed his name on the ballot representing the Dem NPL for the position of Ag Commissioner. Finn, good to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, but I haven't met you until now, so thanks for coming in.
Well, I'm Finton McDonald. How about that? that legitimizes me. We McDonald's raised Red Angus and malting barley, and I'm one of the reasons it's a good market.
Okay, so before we get to the logistics of why you're running, I think a little foundation of why you were even interested in it in the first place is necessary. I found out something just a couple of minutes ago about your grandmother's kitchen table.
Grand aunts.
Oh, grand aunts. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Describe to people what happened at that table.
Sarah McDonald, sister of my mother's father, was an activist. Many of the women in our family are strongly, they're outspoken. Not to be trifled with. And she married a guy by the name of Wood, and they wrote the NPL program at her kitchen table.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's a long history.
Deering, North Dakota.
Okay. So when for those of you who are saying, well, what's the NPL program? He just described the Bank of North Dakota. You described the state mill and elevator and other things that go along with it.
Crop insurance. Dr. Becker, we need crop insurance. Mr. Goering, we need crop insurance.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk to you, if I can, about what you're going to do with this race. Why the passion? What makes you put your name on that ballot?
I am a man who believes the great secrets of God are disclosed in creation. And along with the secrets, I see atrocities with reckless chemistry, reckless oil industry, reckless chemistry in agriculture, and the growth of farms and the extermination of smaller operators and the extermination of small towns disturbs me. It doesn't have to be that way. That's a prime motivator. Stewardship of our land, our air, our water, and preserving the dignified life of the countrymen. Many of them in small towns have a chance to have a more prosperous and satisfied life if we take on these issues with the science that we know and pay the bills that will occur. I'm specifically referring to restoring the productivity of soil in the oil patch.
Okay. Walk people through what we're doing wrong.
Basically, we're plugging our ears and closing our eyes and turning our heads and calling it legacy and asking for forgiveness. It's legacy, forget it. No, we're going to fix it. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes the involvement of the owner of the land. Right now, what we do is we do a very quick, sudden cleaning of the surface. We take the metal off, and we dig and haul a core part of the spillage away, and we bring in what more than one farmer has told me is fence row sand filled with weeds. But the worst part of it, he said, was little bits of barbed wire that get stuck in my air seeder. What we're doing is challenging these landowners. If within 30 days you don't file a request for a hearing, it's over. You're stuck. Sue us. By the way, try and sue all the oil companies in the chain of title. Sue the state of North Dakota and sue everybody in the chain of title. It's an intimidation, and it's a dedication of private property. It's eminent domain backwards. What we're doing is we are taking the private property surface and we are giving it to the oil company as a free of cost dump site. Now, if you've been near Williston, you see there's a very big pile, a dump site. If you go near Sawyer, North Dakota, there's a huge dump site for hazardous material. The oil industry should pay for the disposal, whether it's in a pile or whether it's on private property. Some of these spill sites are 70 years old, and I'm here to tell you as a constitutional lawyer, an eminent domain lawyer, we can fix it. The state and the oil companies and everybody in chain of title is still liable. Don't fear, something can be done. And you pusillanimous old men that own these lands, you ought to pull the trigger. You ought to do it.
So let's talk about what that has to do with running for ag commissioner. How do you tie those two together?
The Industrial Commission is the manager of the oil and gas. They direct a good, devout brother in Christ, Lynn Helms, and tell him what to do and what not to do and how much you get to spend, because we've got to give another tax concession to the oil industry. And that's wrong. The ag commissioner sits on that commission, and as Roger Johnson told me just a couple of days ago, a former ag commissioner, he said, every time one of us raises a question, the deal that's been cooked, the cake that's been baked, gets to be examined. Right now, with 3 Republicans on there, we don't know the deal that's been cooked up in Ron Ness's office and in the governor's office. What we have is a fix virtually every time on any matter of any importance, and we don't get to understand it if there's not a question raised. And I'll start raising questions.
Have you had landowners, farmers, ranchers bring this to your attention? Are they looking for a champion when it comes to this?
We have created, the answer is yes, yes, yes. We have created with Donnie Nelson, a Keene farmer, Darrell Peterson, an Antler farmer, we have created an entity called the Salt Contaminated Land and Water Council, and our URL is www.saltedlands.org. We've also created something called revivethedeadlands.com. You can see pictures, you can see papers, and you can see a series of narratives that Rich Wardner allowed to be presented at the state fairgrounds. I should have been coordinating the meeting. I had pneumonia, so Donnie Nelson of Keene, North Dakota, coordinated it. And Rich Wardner told Mr. Helms, you're not going to talk today. We're going to let these farmers talk without feeling any fear of retribution or concern. So the answer is yes. I hear them all the time. The Northwest landowners have recently allowed me to present my whole team of scientists and technicians, and they are beginning to realize we are not going to forget what's happened. We can fix it. But frankly, they're so tuned in on pore space that they're not grabbing it. When I started my practice in 1976, Randolph Nodlin, Chuck Perry, and others sued Art Link through me. And we obtained a decision that arrested the reckless issuance of water permits to the coal industry. That's what we need to do again. We need to bring these things to a point of decision by an independent judiciary. In the absence of that, I don't see that disposition now. Farmers are old. They're concerned about their grandparents. They're concerned about whether or not they will be blackballed. It's socially unacceptable to bring these things up with the kind of decision that might force a change. So what we have is a widespread understanding that this is wrong and it should change, but litigation is not going to be the choice in North Dakota. My answer is we need to have listening sessions around the state and get the farmers to tell their views as Rich Wardner allowed us to without intimidation.
That's actually the Rich Wardner I know, so that doesn't surprise me. Finn Dooley is our guest. He is the grandson of Dakota pioneers, but what he is running for North Dakota's ag commissioner spot. Let's go.
And say also running for the Industrial Commission.
There you go. Well, you just did. I don't have to. Let's get to the weather cave and find Too Tall Tom Shaman. As I keep saying grandson of Dakota pioneers just because I like saying it, number one. Number two, I love the history of it, but he is running for North Dakota's ag commissioner. And Finn, the history, you have such a great understanding of where we are as a state and how we got there. Does that bring some of the passion to this race? Is that why, at this point in your life, they were able to say, Finn, run for this job? And you said, heck yeah, why not?
Well, Marv Nelson's the one that kept nudging me this direction. And my family's personal connection with John Kennedy has a lot to do with it. For those that are old enough to remember, North Dakota cast all its votes for Kennedy, and it was John Lord speaking, member of my family. Actually, he's married to a McKellicut, my father's mother's family name. So when North Dakota cast all its votes for Kennedy, he broke through and won. If that had not been done, the race would have gone on, and who knows what Nevada, the next end state.
You mean for the Democratic nomination?
And he won because John Lord brought him to Dickinson, and it was a very interesting story. They drove very fast in a sports car called an Austin Healey 3000. They smashed into a covey of pheasants, and there was guts and feathers all over the car, and John Lord is carefully plucking them off. And Kennedy's smearing himself across the car, a low race car, and Lord says, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "Well, when I walk in, I'm going to look like I just got done cleaning chickens." And it works.
It did, huh?
There wasn't a single Lutheran that voted not for another guy. All the votes of North Dakota went for a Catholic Brahmin at Dickinson.
In Dickinson,
Yeah.
Western North Dakota. So
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
A family story.
So if people ask you in a state why, the Democrats are certainly a minority power and probably a minority party more than ever. If they ask you why are you a Dem NPLer? What's you going to answer? What's your answer to that?
I think the answer is that I live between the lines. I think of the trenches. So I'm an odd Democrat. I am not I'm not bound to all the doctrines of the most modern, and I don't want to use all the little acronyms, and because that will provoke suspicion. But I can tell you that I'm wanting to talk to the embittered on both sides, and the folk who say they disagree with my politics don't understand that there's another viewpoint on an issue, and whether it's the death or the near death of small towns, or whether it's the unnecessary increase in the size of farms, those are issues that deserve discussion.
Yes.
And I am a pro-life Democrat, and I have to say that I'm the only one in this room that litigated to stop the oppression of those who were entreating pregnant women not to kill their babies. So that's another oddity in whom I am.
See, I actually really like that about my party, is the fact that you can be a pro-life Democrat. I know many, many pro-life Democrats. I served with pro-life Democrats. That to me is refreshing, because I think you should get to be whoever you want and still believe in other things, like Social Security, like Medicare, like health insurance that people can access. Finn, how has the state of North Dakota done when it comes to the people that were here before us, when it comes to the Native Americans?
I grew up on the western side of the Sioux Reservation, Reeder, North Dakota. I grew up in the site of the last buffalo hunt. My father, as a deputy director of public instruction, took me to these Indian schools when he gave these commencement addresses. So I saw it from the time I was able to pay attention to the arrows and the bones and the old people that were hitchhiking by our home in Reeder. It's really a shameful story. One of the statements is the Great Sioux land grab. The Great Sioux land grab. So we find, when we have generals, when we have money, when we have plans, that the little people don't get it. They don't get a fair shake. And they're one of their statements is, we're still here. They're still here. And especially with the man on Hadassah Rikra, they still have a serious chance to change their life. And unfortunately, the sense of being embittered often inhibits Native Americans from making assertions they should make.
We're going to do this some more another day. Is that okay? Can
Sure.
I get you? All right. Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page?
We do.
I got about 10 seconds.
saltedlands.org and revivethedeadlands.org.
Okay.
Com,
there you go.
.com.
And you'll be able to find all of that wherever you hear podcasts. You'll be able to listen to Finn. When we come back, some comments on you with you about Ben Franklin right after this. Well, Clay Jenkinson, I don't know how familiar you are with Clay's work. If you're not, you should be. You owe it to yourself to be. Clay has been on this show a number of times. He did a lot of work, with this family of radio stations when I was working with Mike McFeely. Mike understood the talent of it, and he would have Clay on a regular basis, and then I would be jealous because I, as a host, didn't have him on. I need to call Clay. I reached out to him to just tell him how incredibly impressed and how proud. I always think that that's like, oh, man, if I say I'm proud. I'm just proud to be a fellow North Dakotan. I am, to know that Clay Jenkinson is one of the high-profile people that is out there giving a historic background and an understanding of who Benjamin Franklin was and what role Benjamin Franklin played in the beginning of this country and how we got to our place where the revolution worked, where we formed a democracy. And Ben Franklin, after watching this on PBS and there, I'm telling you right now, to go to a different medium than what I'm on right now, take a look at it, record it, find time for it, because it's a Ken Burns documentary. And of course, that alone tells you the quality it is, the professionalism that goes into it. But they dissect and they go through the history of Benjamin Franklin. And I've been watching it like like a groupie, and I'm recording it. And the other night when I was watching, and yes, I watched on TV the national basketball game, I flicked over because I'm like, okay, I got to see if Clay's on. I got to see what they're saying, right? This was, a couple days ago or a day? Anyway, I forgot to turn it back to what was one of the greatest national championship games ever, until it's like, oh, God, the basketball game's on, kind of a thing. It holds you. I mean, it holds you. And if you love history, if you love to know more about this country that we live in and what it does and what perspective that individuals like Clay bring to the production is how these people were as humans. We put them on this pedestal and we don't see everything about them. Prior to all this, I didn't know what Benjamin Franklin's stance was when it came to slavery. I probably should have listened in class more, but I'm not sure that it was taught in class in regards to, what each one of the founding fathers' positions were as we went about writing the Constitution and went about forming this more perfect union. So, to listen to the personal side of these men is just so intriguing to me. And to find out just the sheer intellect and what he did in regards to electricity, what he did that others all across the globe used as tools to advance their science. It's just, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. And yet it points out all of those flaws as well, which is why, I have such a respect for the Clays of the world who are out there and giving of their time to do this. And Clay Jenkinson from North Dakota plays a major part in this documentary. He is on often. And I can tell you this, when he speaks, it's with a knowledge and with a passion and an understanding that will hold you. And so how's that for my commercial? That's my, Abby, have
you've been telling me a lot about the Ben Franklin. I'm going to have to check it out.
I think Ken Burns is a national treasure. I just think he is. There's nothing he's done that I haven't enjoyed. He did a piece on baseball. He did a piece on World War II, or I should say the Civil War, which caused me to just become a groupie.
Do we know how I could find the Ben Franklin thing at this point?
It's on PBS. They're continually playing it. It's there yet.
Yeah, but wouldn't I have missed stuff?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
They're still playing the series.
Okay.
And there's a link. Somebody was good enough to send in a link here to the series, but you'll find it. If you want to find it, you'll find it. And
see, I don't know. Like, you always told me to watch Yellowstone. I don't know if I'll get that. I don't know if I'll go to that, but
But
I'll do Ben
Yellowstone is
Franklin.
fiction.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, Yellowstone is just entertainment. This is an
It's
education.
real.
This is real. I mean,
and I don't know much about Ben Franklin.
Ben
So he'd be
Franklin
good
didn't
too.
like his son. I didn't know that. Ben Franklin didn't want to be. Ben Franklin's son tried to help the British. He was in prison for helping the British in the Revolutionary War.
Yikes.
Ben Franklin made 8 treks, I think they said last night, 8 or 9 across the Atlantic Ocean to go between France and us. The French, the one thing that comes out in this documentary on Ben Franklin is, I think, a greater understanding of the role that France played in our independence. That most people know that the French were on the side of the colonies and that the French, really wanted Britain to lose this new land and all of that. But I don't think they understood. I know I didn't. And I like to think of myself as a connoisseur of history. I didn't know financially how big of a role they played. I knew that Ben Franklin was there and telling them they got to chip in, telling them, hey, we need your money. We need your help. We need this. We need military. We need that. I knew that he was the big conduit that got the job done. I just didn't know to what extent until listening to Clay and some of those individuals.
Wow. Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
It's definitely worth it. And then they were talking about last night, and I remember reading about this once, that John Adams, second president of the United States, more of a, kind of a, let's see, how do I say this politely? Yuppity. Is that
Easy
more
yuppity.
moralistic, more, I'll grade
Okay.
somebody's life, Ben Franklin, far less. Far less. Ben, let's have a beer. Let's sit down, cut a deal. Ben probably not as much of a homebody as what John Adams would be. And then John Adams goes over to France to try to get a little more for the good old US of A, and all he does is criticize Ben Franklin. And what you find out is that Ben Franklin got it done. I mean, he got it done. And he came back, and I think he died in his mid-80s, which was really old for individuals in those days. And just, as you can tell, I've become very interested in Ben Franklin.
Yeah,
Safe to say?
you have been. You've mentioned him a lot this week.
Right. So there, ad for PBS.
Add it.
I'm
Okay.
a big fan of PBS. Always have been. And what I think that I do wrong is I don't give them enough consideration. I don't, when I'm sitting there and it's rainy and I'm sitting in my chair and I'm saying, oh, okay, is there an old movie on or something like that? I don't first think, hey, first and foremost, what's on PBS? I should check it out. And
I go to all the streaming services.
Right down to, okay, you're the one that got me watching The Office, right? And now you've got me looking for Parks and Rec. I didn't know anything
I
about
like
the-
Parks and Rec more.
Right. So if you ever go to PBS at different times, they'll run British comedies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. I think that they're better at it than us in some cases.
Really?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
there's I think there's a British version of The Office
Oh, really?
that came. I don't know if it was before or after ours, but I've heard not good things about that one.
A couple of messages coming in said last week Clay talked about his interview process with Ken Burns on the Thomas Jefferson Hour. It's good stuff. Clay will go into character as Thomas Jefferson, and he does public speaking that way because he has such an understanding of history. And, of course, Thomas Jefferson, one of the most important figures in all of America when it comes to the forming of our democracy. And so it's seamless. I've heard him do it. I've watched him do it, and he's incredibly good at it. Joel, the Ben Franklin documentary is riveting and entertaining. Boom, you bet. Some other messages coming in of people that have really, really enjoyed it. So I'm not the only one.
You're not alone.
Not alone.
That gives me faith that I should watch it.
Okay, here's one other thing. She's like, oh, he's going to go on some more. In my mom and dad's house, when you went on the roof to fix things, to do things, to put up Christmas lights, all the kind of crap you do when you crawl up on a roof, right?
Okay.
There was these rods at each point in the house. and there was a copper cable that hooked all to the rods. Okay.
Okay.
So they were called lightning rods, which your generation is far too young to even know. You know, homes now are grounded and whatever. Anyway, there were tons of homes that burnt to the ground because of lightning strikes, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. That'd be terrifying.
Right.
Okay.
Ben Franklin developed the lightning rods.
Smart.
So all I thought of, and they were decorative. My mom and dad's they had a white globe on them, you know, maybe the size of a softball kind of a thing. And so the rod was up there and it was built to put the globe on because you're going to see it anyway. So why not make it look at least halfway cool? I can tell you exactly where the copper line ran down the side of the house, under the eaves, down to the ground. And then I'm sitting there thinking about Ben Franklin, and they're talking about how he was the one that said, look, you know, here's how you can do to control it. It'll go to the lightning will attract to it and it won't burn down your house. Or there were guys, Abby, up ringing the church bells, and they were losing double digit of them a year because of lightning.
Oh,
How'd you like to be up there ringing a bell? You know, the bell's metal, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, zap, here you go. Oh, by the way, it's storming out, but we still need the bell rung, you know?
I would try to throw some rocks at it.
Yeah.
Not touch it.
Somebody said read Walter Isaacson's biography of Ben Franklin. Another good advice. But those lightning rods that were on my folks' house when we re-shingled, when we put new shingles on, they took the lightning rods off.
Yep.
And I'm like, is it going to burn down now? You know, there's a lot of people that remember lightning rods. And then to think of all those generations later that was because of Ben Franklin, I just thought that was a really cool part. All right, let's get to the weather cave and visit with Too Tall Tom and find out. Tom, when you were young in Wisconsin, did your home have lightning rods? Yep. Yeah, that was kind of the standard. Yeah. You don't see them anymore. I was thinking about that. You just don't. Yep. We can find out. We'll find out. Like I've got a chunk of rebar set down where the copper line comes down and hooks to it.
Okay.
That's called grounding, right? This individual, we're talking about lightning rods, ladies and gentlemen. If you just joined us, the riveting conversation about old homes that had lightning rods that had them taken away. And it's like, why didn't they replace them? What did they do to protect against lightning? This individual says that Ben Franklin tried to kill me.
Well, they didn't say that.
Well, he's saying that. This individual says lightning rods were found to actually attract lightning. So people quit putting them up. I'm just joking about Ben Franklin trying to save my life is what he's doing.
How many years were lightning rods used that maybe?
If you drive through old neighborhoods, I bet you'd still see them. I bet you'd still see lightning rods on some old homes. Joel, homes are not protected from lightning if they don't have a lightning protection system. There was a newer home in Williston that burnt down last summer. There were no trees in the community. The likelihood of any particular house being struck by lightning is very rare. Another one, new houses have a chunk of rebar through the footing into the ground, and the electric box is grounded to that. You still don't think that answers your question, does it?
I'm just, for the house that Joel grew up in, there was a lightning rod. They removed the lightning rod. What did they do? You can't, did they put new wiring in or maybe just said, if lightning hits you, it hits you. Then we'll just deal with it.
Because as this person said, lightning rods attracted.
Yeah.
So
because a lot of these other texts, I feel like they're talking about newer houses. When you build a new home, this is what you do to prevent lightning.
If you're going to roll the dice and say whether or not lightning hits you, let's just do it without. I can tell you this, with the price of copper right now, taking down all that wiring for lightning rods, there's money in it. There's money in it. Somebody else said that you could tell whether lightning struck the house by the color of the glass bulbs on the roof. If lightning struck, they turned purple. Do you believe that?
What glass balls on the
They
roof?
were the decorative thing I was telling you about.
On top of the lightning rod?
They obviously, this person says they had a function other than decorative. So you had a rod sitting up in air, put onto your roof by a tripod, and when why? We're in this together now. We're deep in this.
You have 10 seconds.
All right, good ride with you folks. We'll see you tomorrow.